Hi, and thanks for tuning into another Atomic-Moto mission briefing. This one is about waterproof motorcycle boots, specifically how they are constructed. Now, when you look at a motorcycle boot and you hear that it is waterproof, you might assume that it is the exterior shell of the boot that provides the waterproof barrier, the waterproof layer. However, that's not exactly correct. The outer shell of a motorcycle boot, a waterproof motorcycle boot, is merely the structure for rigidity, for support, for shifting the motorcycle, etc. The waterproof layer is actually an internal barrier inside the boot. And to illustrate this, we did something that I thought was kind of cool. We took an old pair of Gaerne G Midland test boots that we've had laying around for a while. They had a lot of miles, probably 3-4 years, at least 30 or 40,000 miles on them, quite a bit of time. And we busted out the trusty old bandsaw and we cut them open. So let's dive into some of the details about how these boots are actually waterproof and how that waterproof membrane functions. Okay, the first thing to know is that the waterproof barrier, the waterproof layer of a motorcycle boot is actually an internal membrane, an internal sock. And I've got one here. It's a little bit skanky, but it will illustrate the point. This is a waterproof insert. This is from, this pair of Gaerne G Midlands. And what it is an internal layer of an antimicrobial, anti-odor, anti-sweat material bonded to one side, and then a thin layer of mesh bonded to the other side of a waterproof membrane. And it is taped in and around the boot. This is inserted into the boot before the sole is attached, right? And the boot is sewn in around it. It's inserted into the boot before the sole is attached, and it kind of wraps around. You see that this one doesn't have a bottom, but when it's actually constructed, it does. It's like a sock or a bootie, if you will, a slipper. It's inserted into the boot, and then the sole is bonded on. And so water actually hits the outside layer of the boot, passes through, but then is stopped by this internal waterproof membrane. Works reasonably well. Actually, it works really well. It's really effective. Down the road, some of these membranes can eventually become non-waterproof. They can fail. And despite the fact that that is kind of a drag, kind of a bummer, really with wear that will happen. How does that happen? Well, when we cut this one up, we saw some really interesting details. One of them is something that our friends at Gaerne USA had told us about, and sure enough, they were right. You can see, we're going to do some detail shots here, but in the toe area of the boot, there's just a little pinhole that's developed here from where? That's from the user's foot rubbing against the front of the boot, and it's been just enough to pop a minor hole there in the membrane. And this isn't a defect. This is actually something that occurs from normal wear. So most boot manufacturers, Gore-Tex excluded, they have a little bit higher level of a waterproof guarantee, but most manufacturers will consider that normal wear and tear, and so unfortunately it won't be warranted. But that's one of the ways. The other way that was pretty cool that we discovered, really interesting in fact, was we cut off the bottom of the sole, and check this out. We looked at the membrane. This is actually the bottom. We ran the bandsaw right through it. You see that it actually wore right through this, down into the heel. So this would be another area that water could permeate the inside of the boot. How do you prevent that? Well, lots of things. Make sure that you have enough room, proper fit in the boot. Make sure that you use a good sock, better hygiene, things like that. But this is just a couple of things about how a boot is constructed and how they're made waterproof. And we hope that this short mystery briefing has been helpful. Thanks for tuning in.